Hello, Dan Davis, Financial Planning World co-founder. Financial Planning World is hosting a series, Industry Trends. Today's focus is on customer confusion. What is financial planning? If you're interested in pursuing excellence in the area of financial planning, visit financialplanningworld.com. You'll be able to see a variety of series that should be able to edify as well as equip you in best practices. A great place to start when you're thinking about financial planning is the origin of it. Many believe that Lauren Dutton, setting up the Society for Financial Counseling Ethics in 1969, is the birthplace formally of financial planning. The first group of graduates from the College for Financial Planning was 1973. In the 70s and 80s, you saw different associations in the industry coming together, some putting out regular magazines. And then my own personal experience, in the late 80s, I graduated from Drake University with a degree in investment finance. There really was not access to degrees in financial planning at that time that I could tell. As I was finishing my degree, I interned for one of the top financial planning companies in the United States. It was the largest publicly traded financial planning company. And my experience was that the process was very sales-driven, not advice-driven. I would also say that the process itself was around ultimately how do we distribute mutual funds, variable annuities, life insurance. Thus the sales process that I was mentioning. I'm amazed now when I look at how many universities offer financial planning degrees. I'm also amazed as I finished being a president of the local FPA chapter, I'm amazed at how many practitioners really care about doing financial planning from an advice process, not from a sales process. The confusion part, I think, really does stem from the industry. I think the industry, because we're about putting product off of the shelf onto customers' financial statements. When I ask questions to prospective clients like, tell me about your retirement plan, my question is around, are you going to have enough money, and have you done some projections to see income, expenses, that type of stuff. But their answers really are around their investments, where I've got this much in my 401k, I've got this much in my IRA, those types of things. When I dig in and ask questions like, have you ever done any projections that take a look at your expenses, separate medical, inflate that at a higher rate to really find out if you're going to have enough money? The answer is typically no. Occasionally the answer is yes. And then when that answer is yes, I'll inspect the work. And the vast majority of it's been oversimplified, where they've taken all the expenses, lump them in, maybe they did 60, maybe they did 70, 80%, and project them out and then come back and say yes, no, Monte Carlo says this, blah, blah, blah. When I look at that, I'm discouraged, because I have done plans that then acid test something like that, and all I've done is separated the medical and inflated at a higher rate, kept the total expenses the same, and someone ends up running out of money. So they get the wrong answer. Now, sometimes they own that because they did it on a website themselves, but other times they've been given that work from a person in our industry. The other thing is that there's times where I inspect the work and it is done just meticulously, I think really best practice. And if you're interested in that type of learning, financialplanningworld.com has a series just on best practices, a particular video on the nuts and bolts around the retirement projections and whatnot. Getting back to the topic at hand, there's times where I see that someone's done a marvelous job on those projections, but then I ask questions like, have you had conversations about umbrella policies with your property and casualty, nursing home insurance? Have you been looking at, for people who are retired that aren't 70 and a half yet, retirement planning that looks at the income tax component, or should you be doing Roth conversions, estate planning, all these types of things? The bottom line is, to suffice to say, there's just a lot of gaps in people's financial plans because there's confusion about what financial planning really is. If you're one of the people who is really going that extra mile to be the captain of the ship for your clients, and you've done that work for them, I applaud you, because I really realize it's very time consuming. We don't make a ton of money on that type of work, but I think that you're doing the right things for your customers. The chart that you see before you is a chart on financial planning, what I think of as real financial planning. It's the way that I make sense of how to guide clients through a dynamic process that's customer driven, that's goal driven. And as a certified financial planner, finished all that work in the 90s, and it's the way I make sense of how do I take that academic study and put it into practice. Suffice to say that, again, if you want to learn about any of the little pieces of that from a best practice standpoint, whether it's the Roth conversions, the protection planning, financialplanningworld.com best practice series. Some roadblocks that affect my team, affect your team, they affect us of being able to do financial planning. One is time. We did a financial plan for a customer the other day, and one of our teammates, I asked him with the client, how many hours did you spend on this financial plan? It wasn't one that was rocket science complex, but it wasn't simple either. It was a garden variety, looking at some what-if scenarios. When you take a look at the 2 meetings we had with the customer and the work behind the scenes, it was well over 10 hours of behind the scenes and paraplanner type work. Some people do that themselves. Other people have to have that as a human resource, and that's a big cost. The other is institutional roadblocks. There are many firms, many of which you know the name of, that will not allow their employees to really do financial planning for their customers. And then competency. It's, if you're doing all this work, do you really have the skill to be able to do that? Some are outside of our control, client time, client interest. While there's nothing that we can do to help you with the client time and interest, financialplanningworld.com has a lot of resources to help equip you as the captain of your client ship, because we view ourselves as someone who can be a guide, a resource, someone that can help you to provide that world-class service for your customers. And summarizing on all of it, real financial planning should be advice-driven, not sales-driven. It should be client-focused. It should be looking at what is best for our customer, not what's going to make us the most money. And it takes a lot of time. And if that is of interest to you, to be willing to invest that time, to take that extra mile on the journey so that you can really help your customers, we're here, financialplanningworld.com, as part of your equipping process, and we thank you for taking the time today. Signing off from financialplanningworld.com, Dan Davis.